All right, it's Friday. Uh, I'm looking forward to this weekend. Well, weekend kind of started yesterday because yesterday was my wife's birthday. So we went out for ice cream and stuff like that. Uh, but this weekend we have a cabin in Grand Rapids and we're going there and seeing some of my cousins I don't see very often. We get together about once a year. So it's always fun to get together with cousins. And my brother's doing barbecue. So my brother's taking care of the food and my cousins are showing up and I don't have to do anything. So I'm liking that. So, um, okay. So Fridays will often kind of be a review day, kind of catch up on things and stuff so that, if we just don't have the concepts down yet for this week, we'll go through them today. And that's what we're going to basically do today. We're going to do a review here. We talked this week we've been talking about variables and how we declare a variable here. We usually use its type and then say what it is. So we'll say things like int score. So we give every variable has a name and then a data type. And we know we have a couple. We have int to score an integer, a double to store a decimal, a string with a capital S to store a string. It's also a Boolean for true false values, but we won't use that as much as the other ones. So we looked at that, and then we looked at how we do input here with what we call a scanner class. So we declare a scanner and we give it some name, like here it's called scan, although I'll typically call it input. And once we have that scanner class, we'll use that and we can say next line to read in a string, next int to read in an integer, next double to read in a double value. And then we generally do that on the right side of an assignment statement. So we have the variable that we want it to store on the left side, some variable equals, and then we do our scanner here. And again, I said we have to declare the scanner ahead of time. We also have to do this import. This is our first of the import. In order for the compiler to know what the scanner is, we have to import this library. So we have to do that import at the top also. So it's kind of three things. We do the import, we declare the scanner, and we use the scanner. And whatever we name the scanner, that's what we have here. You can close the scanner, but in general, we won't be doing that. We won't be worrying about that. It'll close automatically as soon as the program ends. Here. So we looked at that stuff. So now, today, we're largely going to just practice that. You have a couple options on that. We did the at the Mad Libs yesterday, asking for some different things and then printing them out and posting that to the discussion. And remember that you need to reply to two other people's discussion posts here. And what you need to do is look at their discussion post, take their code, copy it into NetBeans and run the code again and generate new output and then paste that output as your reply saying, here's my verb or my, what I do, and just see what, and hopefully you'll make something fun up. We have to read and do all these things. I have to read all these, and I'd appreciate if you're humorous in your responses. Make my grading go a little faster. You don't have to. You still get the same grade if you're boring. I'll just be happier if you're humorous in some ways. So, okay. The assignment is also due here. And again, that's generally has you input a set of stuff. So like here, we are not going to do this in Teams, I don't think, today. So I'm going to take that off here. So with this math magic stuff, what you do is there's these different tricks, math tricks here, and you just have to pick one of them and do it. And it generally asks, and you have to convert it into a program. So like number two is this, you have them ask the user to enter a number between 1 and 8. You read that number in, you then multiply it by 2, multiply that by 5, subtract 5. Finally, you add 7, and then you print out the number and remind them that the first digit should be the number they choose, and the second digit should be 2 here. So that's the trick. So you just have to write a little program to do this stuff. So we'll talk about that some more. But again, if you're at a stage where you can do that, you can just jump ahead and do this. But instead, I'm going to do some of these review problems. So in here, there's these practice problems. Every unit will have some practice problems we can do. So we'll be doing some of these practice problems for this stuff. So there are different practice problems that you can do here, and you can try out ones. So again, why don't you just go into the practice problems, go to unit 2, do the practice problems. There are 4 tabs along the bottom of the spreadsheet. And you should pick one of these tabs and do that problem. So pick one of these and do what it is, what it asks, and write a Java program. So again, you want to be running NetBeans. Once I have NetBeans running, I want to do a new project. Again, it should still be an ant project. We never change that. And the name, so I'm going to do the birth year. So I'm going to do, estimate birth year project. And I'm going to try to write a program that does this. So ask the user to enter their age and store it in a variable. So I'll want to do that. So how would we do that? So again, you pick one of these problems here and run NetBeans and try to do that in NetBeans. And we'll go over some of those. Why don't you try that to start with? Again, hopefully you're going through this. I was working on this birth year one. I printed off enter your age. I have to read in the age. So I have to remember how to do that. How do I, read in an age? So a couple of things, you might just remember it. Feel free, you can look back at our learning material, like in one of the textbooks. How did we do input here? So you can go back to this textbook and see, oh yeah, we did this and this for that. Also, feel free, you have often your other projects here for this. And so here's my Unit 2 sample project. I can just look at that and look back at here's how I entered a name. And maybe I can try that stuff. I did input, and here's I declared input. I often copy the input, the scanner command a lot. We'll reuse that a lot. So I'll just often copy that around. And when I paste that in there, it actually does the import for me. And then try to figure out how you'll use that, what you'll store. So age equals input the next line. Here. But again, sometimes it'll give you suggestions, cannot find simple age and stuff like that. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. And again, you have to remember, we have to declare variables and use variables. And sometimes it's just try, you try something, you find that may not work all the time. So I might say, oh, I know the next line it wants a string, so I'm going to declare a string called age, read that in. But now if I try to do some calculations with age, that's not going to work because I can't subtract an age from a number. So a string from a number. So again, you can try things, see how they work, and adapt from them, change them as necessary for that. So see if you can get a solution to one of the review problems. Most of the review problems also have a challenge or a bonus challenge. So if you get it right, like this one says, try to print out just the last digit of the birth year. There's a whole thing of memes out there where you can use the last digit of your birth year to control your destiny, kind of do astrology sort of stuff. So you can do that. Now, don't worry, our calculations are probably going to be might be off a year or two, or a year, depending on when your birthday is and that sort of stuff. But I'm sure it's not going to affect your destiny that much. So. Let's talk a little bit about what to do when you get stuck in a problem here. So again, I'm trying to do this age problem. It says enter the person's ask the person to enter their age and store it in a variable, and I did that. What is your age? And I declared a scanner and read in age as a string. And I said estimate, the next step is to estimate the user's age by taking 224 minus the age. So I took 224 minus the age, and I'm storing that. That's going to be an integer. So I'm storing it as integer here. Now I'm supposed to print it out. I haven't done that yet because I get this error here. So what do you do when you get how do you problem solve? What options do you have here? So a couple things. Pay attention to the errors. Sometimes they will help. Bad operation type or binary, first type integer, second type string there. So it's sometimes hard, but it's basically saying it's bad operator between a minus. I can't do a minus with a string and int. But again, often these errors are hard to understand. It helps if you read them in detail sometimes, but still they're not perfect. So again, another thing is to do is ask someone, ask your neighbor in class. That's fine. These are just learning. We're doing a lot of learning practice. Feel free to talk to each other, ask each other for help, stuff like that. Call me over here. I often, get, and again, if I'm not around, I'll get people to just take a screenshot, take their phone out, take a picture of that screen and text it to me and say, why is this an error there? So feel free to do that sometimes if we're not in class here. You can ask AI. So I can just take this whole program here, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to bring up an AI. I'm going to do ChatGPT. I'm going to say, I'm having problems with the following Java program. Can you help me out and explain what's wrong? And paste that in there here. And see, it says you are counting an issue because you're subtracting integer 224 from a string age. In Java, you cannot perform arithmetic operations like subtractions on a string. You need to convert the string input age into an integer before performing the subtraction here. If you're reading the user's input here, convert it to this with parse int. So it's trying to give me an alternative here. Now, I'll just warn you that it doesn't always come up with the best alternative here. So this will work. I can go, okay, I'm reading it in a string, and I'm going to paste this in and see if this will work. And that does work. But it's not necessarily the best option. The better option would have been not to read age as a string, but read it as an integer. So rather than doing all of this, it would have been better if I would have just said age is an integer and then read it in not with next line, but with next int. But again, there are different ways of solving it. Some are, more concise or faster than others, but there are, as long as you're coming up with a solution, that's usually pretty good here. And so now I can do something like that and do it. Another thing to watch for is on these practice problems, I'll have sample solutions here for it. So you can just click on the sample solution and it'll show a sample solution here. And you can kind of go through that and get some hints from that. So all those are good ways to try to, when you get stuck on something, to try to get around it. So. We'll just talk a little bit about debugging and stuff like this. One thing I often see students get into is they'll be working on a program that'll have a whole bunch of errors in their program, and they're trying to figure out what these errors, what's causing all these errors and stuff like that. And often, you'll get to that point where you're trying to fix one error, bring in some code, and that causes some new errors and stuff like that here. And it can be very hard when you have, so I can have 1, 2, 3, 4 errors right here, and 5, it looks like, for this. And sometimes when I have errors early on, that will cause errors later on in my program for this. So a couple of things to watch is I would, when you're trying to get rid of errors, try to get rid of the top errors first, because the computer will go through starting at the top, the first line. And if there are errors in the first few lines, that may generate more errors later on. And fixing the first couple errors often may help you with later errors for this. So again, like right away, I have an error on this first line, and that's with packages. And you're going, I don't really know packages, so you might not, watch what that incorrect package is all the error says. And what happens is that we have programs in folders here, which are called packages. And if you have the wrong name here, it doesn't match the folder, you'll get an error. Sometimes if you just delete the package, it'll give you an error that'll say things like, move the class to the correct folder. So I'm going to do that, and it will kind of reorganize things and get rid of the package error for this. With the import errors, again, often it's just a matter of spelling something wrong or things like that. I can't find it. I often go to actual examples you have somewhere else and look at those examples here and copy that exact code so you get all the capitalization right and paste it in here. So watch capitalization and stuff like that, and often just paste examples in from other places. Watch that you don't have multiple classes when you paste in a class in here. In fact, I often think if you get to some point like this with lots of errors, it's almost easier sometimes. I just, okay, I'm going to go start a new project. Where everything's compiling okay, and then from here, now you don't have any errors. Start taking stuff from your old program with the errors and pasting it in there for this. Because like here, I had two classes, and again, I can't have two classes. I can only have one class, or you have classes code outside your main or something like that. So again, sometimes it's better just to start with a new project, figure out where the code is, and there's always a to-do statement here. Put your code after that. And again, you might want to copy some of your code, not the whole thing, just some lines, and just try a line at a time. Okay, can I get this to work? Paste that in here, and then clear up any errors. Make sure you have all the errors working. So it's no errors right now. And then go to another one and see if you can get that in there and move it into this program without any errors one at a time. Well, now I paste this in, and there is an error. So now I want to fix that error before going on, because then I know that it's just this one error and I have to fix it here. And once I fix that error, I can go on. I watch the errors more than the warnings. The warnings usually are saying that something is just not being used yet. So just watch the errors. So just some ideas for how to debug this stuff. I'm just going to talk about the assignment then again a little this week. So we've been doing these review problems. You want to practice your input and output. And then for the assignment this week, you kind of do the same thing. So we want you to do one of these magic tricks where the person enters a number and you do some calculations there. So if I click on that, I bring here, and you just have to pick one of these tricks. I would pick a short trick if I were you. So here's like trick number 2 here I want to try. And so the first step is ask the user to choose a number between 1 and 8. So I'm just going to go to my code. I put a little comment here, choose a number between 1 and 8. So ask you, enter a number between 1 and 8. So this is my output line. And then I'm going to declare my scanner, and I'm going to input that. And I need to store it in a variable. I'm going to call it original number, because this is the first number they're going to print, they're going to enter is this. And I'm going to store that in a variable, and I'm going to read it in with next int with my input scanner. The next step is to multiply it by 2. So that's the number they did by 2. So I put in a little comment, step 2, multiply it by 2. And so I want to store that in another variable. Each step I'm going to have. So, and again, these are all going to be integers. I'm going to say int, give it some name for this second step. I'm just going to call it step 2, maybe. Step 2. And I'm going to say multiply it by 2. And it was the original number. So I'm going to take the original number times 2 there. So that's my step 2. I might want to print that out just to show that I'm doing it right. I can just do system.out, system.out.println, like step 2, and it gives, and then print out my step 2 value, just so I know I'm on track if I want. So if I get something wrong, I can see where it is. And then I go on to step 3 is to multiply by 5. So again, I'm going to go down. I might want to put in a comment. So step 3 is to multiply by 5. So again, I want to do a new variable here. And I could, you'd think maybe I do the same thing as before, the original number times 5, but that's not what I want. When it says multiply by 5, what you do is you say, okay, give me your original number, and I say, oh, okay, it's 4. Multiply it by 2, that's 8. And then you multiply that 8 by 5. So I don't multiply the original number by 5. I multiply the result of step 2, whatever I had in step 2 by 5 here. And then maybe print that out. So again, you might want to actually just do this stuff by hand a couple times, or like with a little calculator to make sure you kind of get this. So again, I'm starting with pick a number between 1 and 8. I'm picking 4. Multiply it by 2 times 2. It gives me 8. Multiply it by 5 times 5 is 40. Subtract 5 minus 5. Add 7 plus 7. Here's 42. And the result says the first digit of the number you choose is the number you choose, and I chose 4, so that's right. And the second digit is 2 and 2, so it's always 4 and then 2 there. So I just kind of print that out as the result. And again, I like it when we, if you're doing this, you print off the steps along the way. I think it's easier to debug this stuff. So print off each step along the way, maybe. So again, I can do here, enter a number between 1 and 4. I'm going to pick 4, 1 and 8. And so step 2 gives 8, step 3 gives 40, and you can keep going to get the result. But that's kind of the idea here, is you pick any of these examples here and try to do them in a math here with different steps. Does that seem like something you can do over the weekend? Yeah. Okay, and it's due Monday night. So if you get real stuck, you can come and ask me Monday during class if you get an error or whatever. And again, feel free to text me. We've got a couple TAs, and I'll see if they can be available this weekend for help too there. So I'll try to watch for an announcement to Brightspace about the TAs there. Okay.